Welcome to Happy Talks with Dr. Alice and Donovan. Dr. Alice Fong is a holistic naturopathic doctor and founder of Amour de Soi Wellness, and Donovon Jenson is a software engineer and founder of HowToHappy.com. Together, they're out to cause more happiness in the world.
Hi everyone, welcome to Happy Talks.
Hey.
So today, Donovan and I are going to talk about how to create healthy habits. So, Donovan, what do you do to create healthy habits for yourself?
Yeah, so I think for me, the most important thing, it's not really one thing, but it's more of a strategy, right? And what I want to do when I'm trying to create a new habit or replace an old habit is just hit it from as many different angles as possible. So for example, like one of the things that helps a lot is crafting kind of my decision environment, right? Crafting the things around me. So I think the easiest one to go to is food, right? Mm-hmm. If I don't want to eat treats, for me, the easiest thing is to not have them in the house. Now, for other people, like maybe it's harder to not buy it at the store, but when I'm at the store, I have no problem just walking by all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But once it's in the house, game over. Like, if it's there and I know it's there, it's going to be eaten. Like the whole package of cookies, the whole whatever is gone. So, you know, like that's one piece is like crafting kind of my decision environment in a way that makes it easier, right? Because if I'm craving a treat, then I have to go out to my car, drive somewhere, get it. I never have that much motivation to eat candy. So like that's good enough for me. And then another piece of that is sometimes you can't like craft some of the decisions away. So, you know, like the place I work, there's treats everywhere, right? Yeah. So another thing that helps me is kind of putting together, I don't want to say a system, but like some rules, like some high level rules, right? Basically something that helps me be clear on the decision I want to make before I get there. Because if I walk into the kitchen and I'm like, ooh, let's see what sounds good. What's going to sound good is not going to be an apple. It's going to be a cookie. It's going to be something else. So kind of making the decision before I'm actually faced with the moment helps a lot. So, you know, if I have my rule of I'm only going to have, you know, one thing with added sugar a day, then it becomes very easy and very clear what is within the parameters and what isn't. And then I don't end up in the gray area of like, well, I only had one, so I probably have two, which turns into 5, which turns into 10. Like it gets rid of that, like having these clear boundaries, for me at least, has really helped shape some of my habits a little bit better. And again, there's a lot of different angles to hit it from, but before I just rant on forever and ever, I would love to hear kind of some of your thoughts on the topic.
Yeah, no, I think creating like clear structure and guidelines really makes the difference. I know for myself, when I'm trying to eat healthy, but I'm not giving myself some strict rules, then it's just game over. It's like, oh, well, that cookie does look good. And I have to be mindful of, you know, well, I haven't had a cookie in a week or two, so I'm going to have this cheat. But then sometimes it's like, oh, well, I haven't had a burger in a week or two, so I'm going to have that burger the next day. And then the next day it's like, well, I haven't had pizza in a while, so it's like builds up. So I kind of, you know, sometimes I'm very strict on the plan where I'm like, no cheating at all. It just makes it very clear that I'm like, no cheating. These are the things that I'm sticking to. No added sugar. Sometimes I do like an elimination diet where I'm not doing gluten or dairy, or sometimes I cut out alcohol and coffee occasionally. Right now I'm not being as strict, but I'm kind of just, my structure right now is to just keep it to the weekends. Actually, I want to limit it to just Saturday, to keep it just to one day. So all those like various temptations that come out during the week, I'm like, well, no, I committed that I can say no, because it's like, this is the week to focus, and food gives me energy to get what I need to done. And if I don't follow any type of plan, then it's just game over, really. So I relate to that a lot.
I wanted to hone in on one of the pieces, which was that you have like a set day to not do it, which I think works for a lot of people. Like I think that's a pretty common strategy that people use to kind of start shifting their habits in a certain direction, is to say like, okay, 6 out of 7 days I'm doing X, which I was going to say the percent, but I can't do math well enough to do that fast. But
One
You
second.
know,
Yeah.
that helps so much because it gets you most of the way there
Right.
without locking you into perfection. I think that's one of the things that really beats people up. It has, for me in the past, is like, you know, having a streak of 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 days and then messing up once and then going,
Like,
well, I already ate a cookie, so whatever. I might as well eat another one. I might as well just whatever. Like, I can't do it. I don't have the willpower.
right.
On that note, I think there's a couple different variations that I've tried that have helped too. One is instead of a specific day, having to hit the habit X days out of the week, right? So like, okay, at least 5 times I'm going to do this. And that works a little bit better for habits you're looking to develop as opposed to ones that you're trying to eliminate.
Right.
And then another one that I had actually a lot of success with was just counting streaks. So there was a period like last year where I was really trying not to drink alcohol, and what I was doing is just seeing what the longest streak I could get was, and so it naturally built up to longer and longer periods of time because it would be like, you know, oh, it's only my longest streak is only 4 days, whatever, day 5 I'm gonna have a drink, like people want to go out, whatever.
Right.
But once it's built up to like 20, I'm like, oh, do I really want to just eliminate this entire streak? And like, it's totally arbitrary, but for me, it was enough to really change my behavior for a lot of decisions. And I think, again, when we go back to habits, it's about like 80-20 type of thing. It's not necessarily about being super perfect with it, though for some people, like you were saying, you need to be really strict because otherwise then the whole thing unravels.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, having some flexibility and knowledge that like what we're trying to do is shift the default. We're not trying to get perfection. We're just trying to push ourselves towards a new normal.
Right. I feel fortunate because I actually work with a lot of people with food sensitivities and allergies. So some people do have to be super strict about it with their diet. I don't have too bad of reactions to anything, but I do when I'm eating actually clean, I notice better energy, better mood, better digestion, better sleep. Like all of these things factor in, and it might not be one specific thing or another, but it's the accumulation of everything. And when I'm being very intentional with what I'm eating, and if I'm going to cheat, it's like if I'm really restricting myself to just one day a week or one cheat a week or whatever that is, whatever that looks like, it's like it better be worth it, not just like some random cheap cookies that are days old that aren't even that appetizing, but they were just there, so I ate them. It's just like, no, it's got to be something really worth it if I'm going to really break from my diet or break from my streak that I've been on. Because usually I can be good for, you know, a couple weeks, maybe 3 weeks. And then it's like, I'm so tired of this. I need a break. and then I have my cheat, but then it's like a slippery slope. Well, they're like, oh, well, you know, I've been pretty good. And yeah, for me, you got to be really careful and mindful.
Yeah. And there's all these numbers. They're like all over the place, anywhere from like a month to 3 months to 6 months to whatever, for like how long it takes to create a habit. I think for some of the things, like not eating treats or something like that, I don't know how long it takes to get out of that habit, but I don't know if it ever happens, right? Like, I don't know if there's ever not a temptation for that to happen, but I do definitely feel like it gets easier. Like, once you've hit, which I've never done, by the way, 6 months of no treats.
I don't know if I can do
Like, I did do 1 month of no sugar, no added sugar. And even that was enough that, like, when I ate, you know, just like a normal cookie or whatever, like, it was so sweet that I could not eat more than one. Again, just kind of going back to what you were saying, like, you know, as we build up some amount of resistance or whatever to like, I really want to do the other thing, as long as we can hit that most of the time, the action we want, eventually that less desirable action that seems desirable is going to be less and less fulfilling, or less and less of a release when we actually do it. Because whatever we were getting before is not going to be as strong once we've extended it out.
Yeah, and sugar is just one of those super, super highly addictive things that are just made to make you keep eating more sugar. Actually, it was at a medical conference where they were talking about like sugar and all that processed crap that a lot of people are eating these days. It feeds like your bad gut bacteria, and that bad gut bacteria send messages to your brain to say, stop eating that bad gut bacteria. So even though that's not good for your body, it's good for that bad gut bacteria. So I like to give my patients some hope, and that is not just a lack of willpower. It's like these foods are designed to be addictive, so you keep eating it and then you just keep eating it. So really, to kind of kill off that bad gut bacteria and stop getting those messages to your brain, you have to like starve it out and cut out the sugar. And maybe that takes a week. You'll go through withdrawal, but once you get past like that week or two, it's easier and you don't crave it as much. And I know for myself, when I'm craving sugar, that when it's really bad, I will drive to the store and I'm like, I need something right now. And that's where it's like, no, I will drive to the store to get something sweet. But thankfully, I haven't been to that degree of sugar madness because I've been moderating quite a bit. So it doesn't get to that extreme, but it's more like, oh yeah, if there's a birthday party, I'll have a piece of cake or a cookie or something. Yeah.
Right. And I think that bubbled up a couple of other related thoughts, which is, I think a lot of times, at least in my experience, some of the habits that I'm trying to change, I really need to tune into the reason why I'm doing it. Because there have been times, and I've seen this in some of the other people that I've like tried to help with their habits, where the reason that they want to do it isn't clear and the cases in which they want to do it aren't clear. And I bring it up because you were saying like, maybe at a birthday party, I really do want to have this, right? Like maybe I really do like, want to have a drink or two sometimes. Maybe I really do want, like figuring out what the actual trade-offs are is really important, and the reasons behind it, because I know in the past there have been times where I've tried to change a certain habit and not really had a very clear reason why. Like, oh, I want to start waking up at 6 a.m., right? Because someone told me to. And I don't have anything else to go along with that.
Right.
Like those types of changes, I was not able to maintain motivation for very long because the reason behind it wasn't very strong. So I do think that's another important aspect, or at least it has been for me, is like really tunneling into why? Like, why do I want to make these changes? Because then in those moments of decision, hey, here's some stale cookies on the counter. Do I want them? Being able to tap into like, no, I have a goal, a fitness goal. I have some type of goal that I'm trying to reach, or no, because I know I feel bad after I eat this stuff. No, because I don't know, just having that one extra piece, again, at least for me, really pushes me over the edge a lot of times. And when I haven't thought about it and it's like, oh, do I want this? And it's like, yeah, I do. It sounds good. I want it.
Right.
So that was something that kind of bubbled up from what you said.
Yeah, I think to just add on to that is the fact that sometimes you don't really know what you're going to get out of it, like changing a habit. Like for me, when I'm recommending, people cut out certain common food triggers like gluten, dairy, or sugar, they don't know like what it's like to like live without it. So, but until they experience it and they feel like, oh, I don't have massive diarrhea all the time. Like maybe that's worth it. And for me, I'm never saying you can never eat this food ever again. It's like you have to know, how does this food make my body feel, and is it worth it? If it's just, maybe you get a mild headache, maybe that's worth it to do that cheat once in a while. But if it's like massive exploding diarrhea, then maybe that's not worth it. But you have to know if that food causes that reaction. So it's kind of the whole understanding there is a reason, even though you're not quite sure how it's going to affect how you feel. Like for me, another healthy habit that I've established, and that I'll be honest, I've struggled in getting into a routine for myself, is meditation. Like I'll be very inconsistent with that. I know like it's beneficial, all the focus and the energy and like the mindfulness. And I would be like, I don't have time. I got so many other things to do. I don't want to just sit there. But when I was consistent with it every single day for 3 weeks straight, I felt like I had more time. I had better energy. I had better focus. I was more productive. I got more stuff done because I was more intentional about my day. It really created the context of my day. So now that I've gone through that experience where I had been consistent with meditation, and knowing like the benefits that I got out of it has me stay consistent.
Yeah, I think that really touches on like a piece that has been important for me. I don't know if this is the same for everyone else, but not necessarily knowing the outcomes. A lot of times I've just been curious what a certain change would be like. And it's like what you were saying with a lot of your patients don't know what the changes will feel like. I guess for me, like that exploration, that time of like, okay, this is how I've always done things. I've always eaten meat. I've never been a vegetarian. You don't really lose anything from trying a new habit for, a couple weeks to see what the difference is.
Right.
And I do think there are all kinds of different behaviors that we can kind of experiment and play around with. And only through doing that can you understand which pieces are helpful and which ones are not. So like you were saying with meditation, you found that there are some benefits. And then once you have done the exploration piece, you can kind of use that as a foundation for making future decisions, in the sense of using that as a reason to motivate yourself to do it, because you have tangible evidence of what it feels like. I can say, like, on the opposite side, I tried some things that I'd heard, like write in a gratitude journal every day. And I don't know, maybe I've told you this before, but I did it every day for almost, I think, 3 months. I hated it. I hated every second of it. I never once liked it. I would go back and review it, and I'd be like, these are the dumbest things. Like, I can't recreate any of this feeling. I'm out. But then, there's all this like literature and advice, and like, hey, you should really keep these. And at that point, I was kind of having a hard time, because I was like, should I just keep doing it anyway, even though I'm not feeling the results at all? And I kind of worked through that, but part of that exploration was figuring out that wasn't the right habit for me. But the habit that actually worked, which was close, right, that I tweaked a little bit, is setting out a little piece of time to reflect each day on things I'm grateful for. For whatever reason, the writing it down, like, just sucked the feeling out and left it on the paper forever. But just like sitting there and doing it just mentally, just without a record, worked really well. And I guess the whole point of all of what I'm saying is just like this kind of exploration of different pieces can help you figure out what the actual tactic is that works for you. Because if you have the reason, there may be multiple ways to actually reach that, like, the thing that you want, the thing that you're trying to get.
No, I completely agree. It's like, just because the top CEOs do X, Y, and Z doesn't mean you have to do X, Y, and Z. It's just like, find the habit. But yeah, you have to be curious. You have to be in the experiment phase, because otherwise you won't know. And yeah, maybe you end up hating it and it has no value to you. But you don't know if it's going to have value to you until you try it for at least a few weeks. And then you can decide for yourself, is this worth it for me to maintain this habit? Or is this not really achieving the results that I want? What was my main intention? What was my main goal? And that's not really hitting what I wanted to achieve for myself, whether it was focus or happiness or whatever it was. Then, there's a million different tools to explore. It's just, but you don't know until you try, essentially.
Yeah, because I think some people, and this goes back to what you were saying about willpower a while ago, but I think some people get a very static image of what they want out of their habits. And then when they can't make it work for them, or it doesn't quite feel right, feel like there's some character weakness, some sort of flaw in willpower. And to me, it's always way more about constructing things differently, like just finding a different configuration that works. It doesn't mean it's always going to be, easy to change our behaviors and change things that we're doing to lead to better outcomes. But a lot of times, especially in my life, there have been ways that I can kind of reconfigure things that I can change, so that, yes, it still takes willpower, but it doesn't feel like this constant battle against myself to see if I have enough character, to see if I have enough willpower, to see if I have enough determination. And I've seen that in other people really take them down fast. Like, they try to do something and then feel like they will never be able to do it and just stop.
Yeah, I think, there is kind of discovering that balance of, yeah, with any new habit, there's going to be some resistance, and maybe discomfort. That's all what comes with growth is you have to have discomfort to grow, essentially. But if it's consistently uncomfortable, if it doesn't bring you any like joy or like benefits after a few weeks, then, maybe change it up a bit, like maybe an exercise routine, being consistent with that. Like if it was a workout that I was just hating every time I go in and that wasn't changing, after a few months, I would be like, yeah, maybe this type of workout isn't exactly what I need to be doing. But the thing is, before I started being consistent with my workout, regardless of whatever the workout is, I would have resistance where like, I don't feel like it, I'm tired, I don't want to do it. Just general resistance to like anything, like a walk or anything. But after I got into a routine of exercising every morning, I kind of, after, I would say even less than a month for me, I actually started looking forward to my workouts. That was amazing. That's a huge breakthrough. So when I can like look forward to my workouts because I enjoy it, it makes me feel better afterwards, better mood, better energy, helps me through my day, all of that. But if it was just like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an activity that I would really absolutely hate. Just like, would be terrible, like, I don't know, golf. I'm terrible at golf. I just would not want to do that every day if that was like my activity. So yeah, it has to like bring you some sort of benefits within hopefully a few weeks to keep you sustaining in whatever that habit is, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's not like a set in stone rule, but I do think it is kind of a warning sign if you have been doing something for, we'll say 3 weeks. I don't know, not exactly 3 weeks, but 3 weeks or so, and it's not getting any easier and nothing has changed.
Right.
And you're not really feeling that many benefits out of it. And I do think there is an important distinction to tease out here in terms of setting a habit for, how will I phrase this? I guess showing up versus doing the actual work. So for example, you can have a routine of working out and the workouts can all be effortful, right? Like it'll never be a super habit of like the actual workout, but making sure you show up there can have it. And I think that applies to all kinds of things. Writing, for example, like I've done a lot of writing in the past and I had it set up so that there was a certain block of time that I would go do my writing. It didn't make the writing any easier. Every single time I have to put together sentences and paragraphs, it still racks my brain. But building up the habit of actually getting there became a lot easier. And I think that's an important distinction because,
that's a good point.
there can be some things that they're going to be effortful always. But there are pieces or like the showing up part that you can get closer to automation or being habitual.
Right. You still may never enjoy it. Yeah, that's a really good point because I was just thinking my workout today had burpees in it and I'm like, I don't know if I will ever like burpees ever. But I didn't have a whole lot of resistance to doing it. I was just like, yeah, I know I can do it. I'll do it. I'll hate it. And then it's done and I'll feel great. So I'll do it. So there wasn't like, less humming and hawing about it than if it was like, if I wasn't in a habit of doing them semi-regularly, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that is the difference, right? The difference is how much resistance you have to doing it and the benefits that you get. Like the gratitude journal thing, I had resistance to it every day. I never felt good from it. Like it was not useful to me in any way. So I think that's what I meant in terms of it's kind of a warning sign if you've started building a habit for, a month or so and you're not really getting anything back out of it. You're not seeing like, oh, there's some trade-offs here because you have to put in effort to get fit, which doesn't seem fair. But that to me is something to really try to be mindful of.
No, absolutely. Yeah. What are your thoughts about, knowing something would be helpful or is helpful? You've experienced it having results, being helpful in the past, but you're still like sucking at being consistent with it.
Yeah. To me, it's all about finding, and I talked about a couple of them, but more leverage points, right? It's finding more angles to hit it from. So what did I talk about already? Crafting your decision environment. So let's say that you want to start writing in your journal and you've been leaving it right next to your bed it's not working. Like, it's just, you see it and you're like, whatever, I don't want to do it.
Mhm.
So you need to find some other way to get leverage on that habit. So another example might be adding some external accountability. So finding someone else who also wants to do that, or at the very least wants to help you stay accountable to it. And maybe that lever works for you a little bit better. Like,
Mhm.
hey, you know, ask your significant other, maybe like, hey, do you want to journal at the end of the day? And then that is another lever. So like maybe just seeing it and changing your environment didn't help, but having another person involved might help. And so it's about kind of just brainstorming these different ways to make it easier on yourself, right? Because if you're trying to change behavior and the only thing you're really relying on is willpower, that's tough. That's like the hardest path to take. That's the most difficult way to do it. So the easier thing is just tweaking and tuning all these pieces of your life to make it as easy as possible. Again, like, let's say that you're not able to stop yourself from buying treats at the grocery store type of thing. If you wanted to add external accountability to that, and maybe this is a little contrived, but like, you could have to send your receipts to someone else and then like prove that you're not buying treats.
Yeah, that might work. Now, if someone else knows what you committed yourself to, they might be like, oh, well, you said you weren't going to buy any treats, or they can be also aware that like, oh, don't bring treats in the house because you know Alice is going to eat them all. That's what I have to do. It's like they can't come in the house or they're gone in days, within days, like that. So
that's my same exact same.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, no treats in the house. I agree with the accountability piece. I for me, what I do is kind of notice what habits am I consistent with that I don't necessarily need the external accountability, like brushing my teeth. I don't need someone to like, I text, I'm like, I did it. Like, I will do it regardless. I don't need someone to tell me, like, check in with me. Did you brush your teeth? Maybe some people do. But that's something like a habit I'm very reliable at doing. But habits that I know will benefit me, but I know that I'm not always consistent and reliable, I do have to expand it. Like, the more people I tell and involve, the more likely I'm going to do it. Or even we can use us as the prime example of creating social media content. We're not very consistent with it on our own separately, but since now we have like a consistent meeting time, we always do it every single week. So that gets us, you know, the accountability, having another person involved. The same goes for my meditation practice. I love meditation. I love that the benefits it brings me, but I still struggled with the consistency until I finally started getting to meditation, like groups on WhatsApp. So we're all like reporting when we've done it every day. And now, because I know I'm going to have to report it in the chat every day, I do it. So that makes the difference, because I'm like, oh, well, people will know if I don't, so I better do it, kind of a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, to me, like, those are some of the types of like how to add external accountability. I talked about a couple ways to like craft your decision environment. You can also add internal accountability, which is just to say that like tracking, right? Some sort of tracking for yourself, not necessarily something you send out, but like some people like to have like checklists or whatever to like say, okay, I did this thing today. I did this thing today, like as part of a habit. Right. And there are all these, like, I can't think of a ton more off the top of my head, but there are all these different ways that we can just nudge ourselves towards the types of behaviors that we want. Right. And it really depends on what the habit is, what's going to work. Like, most of the things that I do are internal accountability, or that is to say like spreadsheets and checklists and all this stuff. Most of my habits, I'm able to track through that, and I'm pretty consistent on, because I like seeing my boxes filled out. I don't know why, it doesn't mean anything, but it makes me happy. But in the same vein, like, that did not work for me for creating YouTube videos, right? Like, for that specific habit, right, I needed external accountability, and I don't need the internal stuff. Like, I don't have somewhere on my checklist, like, make a YouTube video once a week. That's not a thing. So it really depends on what you're trying to do, and then just throwing as much as you possibly can at it until you find what clicks, sticking with it for a little while, and hopefully seeing some of the friction evaporate.
Yeah, no, I agree in that. It doesn't necessarily mean you need external accountability to get you to do your habits. I guess the main point I want to bring is to not be stopped being like, oh, well, I'm just a bad cook, so I'm not going to cook at home. Like using that as a let yourself off the hook from like prepping your own meals. It's like if you're committed to eating healthier, yeah, maybe like learning to cook a little might be involved in that process versus getting takeout all the time. And you could still be healthy getting takeout, but it would just be more cost effective, and you can control what you're eating when you're being able to cook. But if you're not consistent with cooking, instead of being like, well, I just don't have time, I'm not a cook kind of a thing, actually consider, okay, well, I just haven't found the thing that works for me to make me cook consistently. Rephrasing it in your mind, being like, I'm not a cook, so therefore this is never going to work. To be like, okay, maybe telling my partner that I want to be cooking consistently wasn't enough. Maybe I need to tell someone else. Maybe I need to join some like group or coaching system, or maybe I need to hire a professional, or maybe I need to have Donovan's checkbox system. I don't know what it is, but there's like so many avenues that you can explore. But when you're just stopped by, oh, well, I just am a terrible cook, so why bother? then nothing's going to be different, really. So like exploring your options really was the main point that I'm trying to get across.
I think that's super important and very, very common, which is that people have some idea of something they want to do, try to make some effort at it, don't get the results that they're looking for,
right?
And then interpret that or use that to create some sort of a story that's completely self-defeating.
Right.
When in reality, it's not impossible. It's like you were saying, just finding the right avenues. And I really think that's ridiculously common for people trying new things, is just not seeing or being aware of, okay, there are maybe 100 different things that I could do to tweak this one habit to get to this reason that I want to change my behavior. And it might take me a while to investigate all these different paths to figure out which combination actually gets me to the destination. And I think if people just, were aware and stuck with it a little bit longer, they would find success a lot more often. And I guess that's another part of it, is like, I was talking about avoiding perfection in terms of you just want to get this behavior most of the time.
Right.
The other piece is realizing that there are likely to be missteps. There are likely to be times when it doesn't happen. And my favorite little, metaphor thing to go along with this is like, if you were driving on a highway and you miss the exit to where you're supposed to go, would you just keep driving down the highway forever, or would you get off on the next exit? And that's what people do a lot of times with their habits. They miss one time and then they're just like, forget it, I'm not going anymore.
Yeah, why bother?
Maybe slightly further from your destination.
Yeah, maybe it'll take you a little longer. Right. Okay.
But the only way to get there is to take the next exit. You wouldn't just go drive endlessly.
Right.
But that's what we do with our habits all the time.
Until you run out of gas, And then you're just, it's like if you want something to change, whether it's to lose weight or to have more energy for work or whatever it is, if you're not there right now, then just explore. Not everything is going to get you, it's never a straight curve like this. Like growth, change, it's a rocky road, and you got to be willing to explore your options and willing to try. That's the thing. And being actually not only willing to try, but willing to fail. That is a big thing. And that it's okay to fail. If you want to really, whatever it is that you're committed to in life, then that's part of what you need to do to get there.
I really think that a lot of people get stuck on just thinking that they should be able to change their behaviors permanently in one go, and then when they can't, it says something about who they are as a person. And I just feel like that's a very flawed model of looking at yourself and your behaviors.
It's not easy, especially when it's an unhealthy habit. Like if you were a smoker, for example, most smokers, they have to quit, what is the average, like 5 or 7 times before it's like real. And it's okay. It's like it's people fall off the wagon. I get it. It doesn't make you a terrible person or a weak-willed person. It's just like, yeah, you had a slip, but it doesn't mean you're never gonna succeed at this. Each time you do it, it's probably gonna get easier, hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah. I also like to compare it to, if you think about a habit that you've had for a long time, right? A lot of these habits we want to get rid of, we've had forever. Like if I compare the number of years that I've eaten cookies to the 0 years that I haven't eaten cookies, like the amount of, like if I imagine it like a mound of dirt or something, some giant feature that's been building up, and every year that I've done whatever the thing is, it's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And then I imagine having to unwind that. And this isn't 100% how it works, but it's close enough of a metaphor that like it helps. Like if I had to imagine moving that into some other pile, it doesn't make sense to expect something that I built over 20 years to disappear in 6 months.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like it's going to take time to get things from one pile to the other. So I think that's another thing is like, you know, if you've been smoking for 10 years and you spend a month trying to kick that habit and it doesn't quite work, you got to realize that you have so much momentum from the past that you're unwinding, and it takes time.
Yeah, it's a process, and you got to be patient. It's especially like the longer the habit you've had, the unhealthy habit, whatever it is, eating cookies, smoking, whatever. It's just like the longer you've been doing it, yeah, the harder it's gonna be to break it. And yeah, it's probably not gonna be just 3 weeks or a month or maybe even 6 months. Maybe, you know, maybe it takes like the amount of time it took to build that habit. I don't know, or maybe half that time. But even still, that's still a significant amount of time.
And then again, I'm kind of going back in a circle, but that's another reason why I think it's so important to have a clear reason why you're trying to get something done, because there are going to be times that are rough. There are going to be times where you didn't quite do what you wanted. You didn't quite get the outcomes you wanted. And you have to remember why it's worth it if it takes a year to keep starting over and trying again. And it should hopefully get a little bit easier each time you learn some things. You can try some new things. You can experiment with some things. But having that reason is important, because once you get knocked down, if you don't have a good reason to like, okay, this is for my health. This is so that I can live an extra 20 years or whatever. This is why I have to do it. If you don't have that, then it's a lot harder to get back in and start at it again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think another reason of not just living 20 years, that's a good reason, but like, who do you want to be there for in that 20 years? Do you want your loved ones to lose you earlier? Or I don't know. I mean, it doesn't mean it's the case for you specifically, but it's just something to consider. What would happen? What's the impact if I'm not around for less? Like if I had the opportunity to have like 5 more years with my family, would I take it? I don't know. That's really your choice. So yeah, any other final thoughts on healthy habits?
One last thing that I wanted to touch on is for getting rid of negative habits. I think it's very important to not set your goal up or your situation up in a way that you just expect yourself not to do it. It's way, way easier if you have some sort of alternative action. Because if it's a habit, there's whatever scenario, whatever impulse, whatever thing causes you to do it, that's going to continue to happen for a while. And if you're just expecting to not do it, that's basically leaving it almost completely to willpower, which again is the hardest path. So if you come up with some sort of alternative, any alternative, like when you feel that impulse, when you're in that situation, when you have that trigger, that's going to be more effective than just hoping or trying to like strongman your way through it. Like that's
be fine.
Way
No, I agree. Actually, an example that I use for my patients that are trying to quit smoking, you know, I get it's super hard to quit, but before you smoke that cigarette, when you feel the urge, which is usually maybe stress related or whatever that they're dealing with, they're stressed out, that's their coping mechanism is to smoke. I'm like, I totally got that. And it's not saying that's wrong or bad to deal with stress in that way. But before you do that, do a 10-minute breathing exercise. And then if you still feel stressed after, then you can have your cigarette. But you have to do that first before you go to the cigarette instead of your go-to, to kind of like de-stress them before they go into their healthy habit or unhealthy
Yeah. Especially if you can find, like in this case, an alternative that meets the same need, right?
Yeah.
Like the trigger is stress.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have the habit of smoking, that's your way of releasing that stress. And coming and putting something else, some other way to release the stress, gives you so much more likelihood of following through than just hoping that you can sit there and just deal with the urge and power through it.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Great. Well, thanks everyone for watching. I hope you learned some ways to maintain and start and healthy habits, as well as get rid of those unhealthy habits.